So, Mark, why don't we get into the UDFAs? Because even though the draft closes after pick 256, Mr. Irrelevant gets selected. That was linebacker Grant Stewart from Houston this year. After that gets over, teams are still adding players to the roster. The Chiefs added 7 players, haven't officially announced it as the time of recording this podcast. So I don't really think that they're fully done. But they usually add 7 to 10-ish, kind of in that ballpark to fill out their rosters, get some camp bodies in here. So let's talk about these guys. So the first one that came out was BYU linebacker slash safety. I saw him called both, Zane Anderson. And when I saw this guy, very Dan Sorensen-esque, friend of the program, Joshua Briscoe, he tweeted out a comparison about Dan Sorensen and Zane Anderson. So what do you think about this pickup for the Chiefs?
Yeah, that's the exact comparison that I saw. He's from BYU, so is Dirty Dan. He's an Andy Reid tough special teams guy who might make it on defense eventually is kind of how I see that pick,
Yeah.
which as an undrafted free agent, that's kind of what you expect him to start out at special teams, then move their way up. But yeah, I saw a guy, I think it was about 5 or 6 days before the draft started. He said, this guy is a Dan Sorensen copycat. And he was a guy that I think writes for BYU. So he said it would make sense for the Chiefs to pick him. That was kind of like his thing. And then the Chiefs didn't pick him, but they got him as an undrafted free agent. So I know that guy on Twitter was pretty excited about seeing Zane go to the Chiefs. So I think, he'll be able to maybe work his way into a special teams role, at least be able to be a camp body, like you said. And who knows if he'll make the team, but it's good to get guys like that into camp.
For sure. And he's one of those hybrids too, like Dan was coming out of BYU, where he can play linebacker, but he can also play safety. He's good in coverage. So it's like one of those things where you're like, okay, the similarities go like further than just them being from BYU as well. So their play style is very similar. He's an average athlete. He's good in the slot, plays up in linebacker. I think that this pick will be very Dan Sorensen-esque. I wouldn't be shocked if we see him make the roster as a special teams guy.
His special teams play, I dove in a little bit to some of his film that I saw, not really film, but just like videos that I saw on Twitter that I could find. And his special teams play is actually really like he's like an excellent special teams player. So like he's the guy that always downs the ball at the 1 yard line. Like that was his like specialty. Like he's got pretty good speed, it looks like, for a special teams player. So, getting guys like that's always a healthy part of your roster.
I think so too. And another guy that they got that I don't know if he'll see the field. I don't think he will. SMU quarterback Shane Boucher. When the Chiefs signed a quarterback in undrafted free agency, people were like, "Uh-oh, Patrick Mahomes on the hot seat." But I think that he could be potentially a good backup quarterback, kind of like a Jordan Ta'amu type thing. With him, good practice squad guy to get the reps in for the defense. And he's a potential project too. I could see Andy Reid putting in some time, growing him, nurturing him, and then trading him away for like a 3rd round pick and getting a good return on investment here. So that's something that I can also see happening with Boucher, because I think it's possible that'd be a phenomenal return for Andy Reid and the Chiefs.
He did that a lot in Philadelphia. If you go back into his days in Philly, where he'd get a guy, I should have written down their names before we started the podcast, but there was like probably 4 quarterbacks that he ended up trading away and got some picks for, that were essentially backups that got to play for a little bit and then come in and you trade them. So you don't want to see Boucher on the field for the Chiefs, but if you can have him, be a good preseason quarterback and look really solid in the preseason, then maybe he plays in a week 17 or week 18, however deep we start going in the season. If the Chiefs, are sitting pretty and you just need somebody to get in there and play for a week like Chad Henne did last year, maybe he can be that guy too. So not a bad pick. I think it's good that you get a younger quarterback in here. I was kind of, eventually you want to get the younger, because Patrick Mahomes is far enough along in his career. He doesn't need that veteran guy like a Matt Moore or Chad Henne. That's just a guy that, Andy Reid likes to have in there because he likes those kind of guys. But having a 3rd string quarterback like that, a younger guy, I think that's going to be good to have for the years to come.
I'm right there with you. It's always good to have a young guy. Now Mahomes is the veteran. He's not
Yeah.
the guy who needs the veteran. He's going to be the veteran doing the mentoring. So I think that the Boucher pick makes sense, especially if the Chiefs can get a nice pick from him. Wouldn't that be nice? And now you're going to see a trend with some of these picks, these signings here from the Chiefs, because Alabama linebacker Riley Cole, another linebacker the Chiefs signs, South Alabama. South Alabama is in Mobile. He attended the Senior Bowl. He was one of South Alabama's representatives for the game. They always have a couple, at least, in the Senior Bowl. In case he really needs depth when it comes to linebackers, because when you look at the linebacker room before the addition of Nick Bolton, you're looking around thinking, okay, there's like 6 bodies here and there's 3 positions. So like if there's an injury, they're kind of in trouble. So it makes sense to add some of these linebackers, like going back to Zane Anderson, he can play linebacker too. So that makes sense. They got safeties, they got defensive backs, and they're going all defense in these last UDFA picks here, which didn't shock me a whole lot because they do really need depth on that side of the ball. I think that's kind of the biggest thing when it comes to Riley Cole is he's a depth piece here.
Yeah, depth piece and another guy that if he ended up making a team, another special teams guy as well.
Yeah.
So it kind of looking at when you get into these undrafted free agents, that's just kind of how it rolls. It's like they're going to be a depth piece. They're going to probably play special teams. But Riley Cole, yeah, I'd heard his name before, which I was trying to think of where I'd heard it from, but it might have just been from the Senior Bowl stuff. Because I didn't watch a lot of South Alabama football, if I'm being honest with you. But
Right.
yeah, Riley Cole be a guy that comes in and just kind of, plays the role. Maybe he makes the team, maybe not. But like you said, it's good just to have a guy be able to come in here and be a depth piece especially last year when they had those linebacker injuries and COVID stuff. They were really thin at linebacker. So I'm glad they attacked that with Bolton and then with another couple undrafted free agents.
Yeah, I totally agree. Uh, I think defensive back for the long term was kind of another concern that the Chiefs had, and these next 3 guys we're going to talk about have the ability to play corner, defensive back, safety. Any of those positions are all interchangeable. Devon Key is a box safety with an NFL frame from Western Kentucky. I think he does have some good potential. He's a good tackler, good around the line of scrimmage as well. So I think that this was a solid pickup, good signing for the Chiefs. Now, there's a lot of these guys. There's a reason they went undrafted, right? You're not going to
Mm-hmm.
find any. Usually, you're not going to find any day one starters at UDFA's. But there's always a reason that these guys are undrafted. So while I might say that he is a good tackler and he's good around the line of scrimmage, just keep in mind, don't get too excited about these guys because I think this is another really good special team or two. When I was looking up scouting reports on this guy, they like to mention that a lot, really, on the last 3 guys we're going to talk about besides Malik Herring, is they talked about their special teams abilities. And maybe this is when Dave Tobe was like, hey, I've got some guys, Brett Veach, can you ring these guys for me because I want these guys to play special teams for me.
Mm-hmm. Totally true. Yeah. And like you said, the secondary, that's where they didn't get to draft one yesterday or a couple days ago on day 3 of the draft. Secondary was a spot where I thought they might go late in the draft, but when Trey Smith was sitting there, there's no passing up Trey Smith when you see him there in the 6th round. So I think the Chiefs played it smart, being able to target the secondary in undrafted free agency where Veach that's his bread and butter, getting some unknown secondary pieces to get in there and play. I think it's a solid job by them.
Mark, I'll let you talk about this guy next. You're a Nebraska guy. This is a Nebraska guy. Dicaprio Booker. What I saw about him is that he's a solid athlete, 8.22 RAS, durable, 32 straight starts to close out his career at Nebraska, played at both safety and corner. What do you like about him?
He's just a really tough defender. He's one of those guys that plays to the ball really hard every time. He's going to knock people down. I think I don't know for sure on this, but I think 2 games he got knocked out for unsportsmanlike hits. So he is a hard hitter. Like in the NFL, I don't think he'd get kicked out of games for those hits, but in college, they've got kind of strict on those things. But yeah, he is just a hard hitter. He's small, which is why he didn't get drafted. Otherwise, I think he probably would have been like a 5th or 6th round guy. But yeah, I think he's like 5'9", so he's kind of small. He could be a slot corner, and I think he also is pretty good at tracking the ball, and for
Mm-hmm.
being small, he's got some interceptions on him. So, like you said, he's a guy that can play kind of anywhere in the secondary. Safety, he wouldn't play outside, but he can play slot corner. He can play any of the safety spots, and he's just a tough dude that loves football. So I think I could definitely see him making the roster and being a depth piece in the secondary and being on special teams as well.
I agree with you. I saw he got some loose hips. He's a good athlete out there too. Chiefs drafted a lot of good athletes this time around, and now it's going to be brought up. Nick Bolton's RAS wasn't the best, and really nobody from Mizzou's RAS was the best. Nobody at Mizzou tested very well. Must have a slow field. That indoor facility must be a slow surface because
Mm-hmm.
nobody really ran well. Nobody tested very well at Mizzou, which I mean it's like kind of like Pitt, right? So like Pitt, nobody really tested well at Pitt, made those guys slide. Nick
Mm-hmm.
Bolton slid all the way down. There are people projecting Nick Bolton 28 overall
Yeah,
to the Saints, and they ended up going with who did they go with? I forgot at
in the
28.
first round.
Yeah.
I can't think of it off the top of my head either.
Me either. I'm gonna have to look it up while we talk about Marlon Character from Louisville, another defensive back. He's got some good size, NFL ready frame. His experience also is in man and in zone, so that kind of is a nice little benefit going for him. Another really good special teams guy.
Yeah, Louisville, they've been pumping out the NFL draft prospects the last
Hmm.
4 to 5 years. They kind of had their program down in the dumps, and it turned around there for a little bit. And I don't know a ton about Marlon Character Jr., but he's a guy that seems like he could come out and, like you said, hit some guys hard, kind of like Boodle in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's a guy that another nice body to bring in. As we should say.
The Saints drafted Peyton Turner at 28. I should have known that because
Oh
that
yeah,
was
that's right.
that was my guy there. I like Peyton Turner a lot. Jordan wrote in the little UDFA tracker that Character had 37 tackles, 6 PBUs, pass breakups, and an interception in 10 games last season. So in 10 games, that's a pretty good stat line, especially for a defensive back. I think that he would be a nice welcomed addition. Also, another depth piece when it comes to playing cornerback, playing safety. Also, the cornerback room is pretty thin when you look at it, and they're not signing Rashad Breeland yet, I should say. I
Hmm.
would not be shocked if he comes back, especially now the market's not the best. And the Chiefs still might have a little bit of work to do in free agency before the draft starts, but I think they did, or before the draft starts, before the training camp starts. I'm still thinking about the draft. I can't stop it.
Yeah.
But the last pick up here, I really like in Malik Herring. He's an edge from Georgia. He tore his ACL in January, but he's a really good football player. He's a good edge. He's got good feet, got good moves, and he's a rotational guy if he can figure it out. I say figure it out as in get healthy, right?
Hmm.
If he can get healthy and ready in time for the season, which he should be. Guys are returning from ACLs in like what 6 months now, so he should be healthy by camp in August. To kind of get his feet back from under him. We saw Juan Thornhill kind of be a step slow after it. All those things could happen, but I think that he has the potential to be a really good rotational guy, kind of like Mike Dana was, kind of like Tershawn Horton. I can see this. I can see Malik Herring being a very Tershawn Horton type UDFA pick.
Yeah, and I was reading up about him a little bit because I didn't know a ton about Malik Herring either. But
Mhm.
he's kind of a guy that they said was maybe a little bit in between edge and defensive tackle,
Yeah.
and so he could maybe play anywhere along the line. Which I mean, it's good to have versatility. We know Spags likes the versatility, so having Malik Herring come in and be that kind of rotational guy, I think that's a good pickup by the Chiefs.